All right, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. This is the opening of our town hall forum tonight. We originally had planned to do it one format, but after talking to the city and the city's concerns about restrictions about people and how many people you can have in attendance for an event, we kind of changed our format a bit because we wanted to meet all the COVID regulations that the city and the state and the counties are enforcing right now. What we're here to do simply is to talk about and discuss what happened on July 13th. Are you still going live? And what happened there, and what it means to us as citizens, and how within the state statutes we have the ability to petition our government directly. This is something that's really afforded to us as Americans and Texans, and it's very unique. I'm going to turn it over real quick to Andrew Kane, who kind of kicked this off. I don't know you guys are going to learn enough, but he really kicked it off because he took the time to read the legal document and he saw that the petition existed. He kicked off a Facebook page group called Aransas County Courthouse, Let Us Vote. And it's a group of just...
I lost the connection.
Oh, you lost the connection?
Yeah, they told me to turn the phone sideways.
Hey. Okay.
They're saying that we got to turn the phone.
All right. I could have turned. Hello, sir. Are we good now?
We're good.
I know. When you're amateurs.
Somehow I got a hat put on. No worries.
Hold on.
I'm doing technical difficulties.
Oh, we're having technical difficulties. Are we recording right now?
That's what they're doing.
Okay. Hello, ladies. Thank you all for coming.
Can they hear us now? Can you hear us now?
So we have, can you hear us now?
Yes.
You can hear us now. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew, and Andrew's going to kick it off, and then we're going to have Cheryl Matlock, who is the owner of the Busted Pod, who's been gracious always in letting us host this here. I can't say enough about her. She's going to talk to us a little bit, hopefully give us some insight about being a lifelong resident, about being a business owner. And she's downtown, so like the courthouse and what happens in this, even though that's not the real issue is the debt that we're assuming. But the courthouse, and this means a lot to her. And then we're going to have the County Commissioner, Wendy Lawbach, and she's going to come and talk about some of the details we have, and we're going to do our best with our limited capability to answer any questions that you might have. It might involve one of us giving you our phone number and you giving us a call, and we ask at that time. But please be patient with us. We're going to try to do our best. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew now. Thank you all.
Watch your phone in case a call comes in. How you doing? My name's Andrew Kane, and I'm going to try to get 3 points across real quickly for y'all. First off, I want to make sure y'all know the petition is about ensuring taxpayers have a say prior to new taxes being incurred. This is not about stopping a courthouse. Secondly, it's important to understand the difference between our wants and our needs. And thirdly, we need to live between our budgets, or live within our budgets. So I'm going to use my own story to help explain some points. I fell in love with Aransas County in the 70s, doing many trips to our family's condo in Key Largo. I eventually moved back with my wife and kids to Rockport in 2012. Like most of y'all, in 2017, my wife and I lost everything when the house we rented was completely destroyed by Harvey. We decided to build a new home, and we had to figure out what our wants and what our needs were. And most importantly, what could we realistically afford? What did I want? Well, my dream since childhood was to one day own a home on a canal in Harbor Oaks. And 2 months after, my wife and I were able to buy a vacant lot in Harbor Oaks. But no, not a lot on a canal, as because what I wanted was $250,000 for the lot. What I needed was a fraction of the price at $50,000. Then we built a modest 1,700 square foot, 3-bedroom home as it fit our needs and allowed us to live within our budgets. Now let's compare my story to that of the county. We need a courthouse, as ours was completely destroyed, supposedly. After more than 2 years of effort, the plans for a 2-story, 45,000 square foot courthouse were recently presented at the July 13th, 2020 County Commissioners meeting. Despite this new courthouse already being much larger than the 26,000 square foot prior courthouse, the commissioners quickly dismissed the plan and asked for a 3rd floor to be added for a total of 55,000 square foot. The cost of this new expanded courthouse far exceeds the grants, insurance money available to pay for it. And the end result is I don't know, they keep moving the number, $17, $19, $20 million bill in the form of a certificate of obligation, what the taxpayers would have to pay for over the next 25 years. With 2+ years of planning changed in less than a 5-minute discussion, I questioned whether the county truly understands their needs versus their wants. It is also clear with the certificate of obligation of $24 million, the county has no intention of living within their budgets. My neighbors all have stories like mine, and unfortunately, most much worse than my story. I'm here to tell my county commissioners to do like we all have to. Live within your budget and be responsible. That is what I have done, and that's what the citizens of Aransas County have had to do. So what do the taxpayers want? I don't know. We haven't discussed it. We've never had an opportunity to input. Do they want a 2-story, 45,000 square foot courthouse? I kind of liked it. I don't know. Do they want, like the commissioners want, a 3-story, 55,000 square foot that almost doubled our participation from 10 to 16, 17, 18, I don't know. At one time they said 20. Or do they want something different? Do they want to stay in the shopping center that we could buy? I don't know. The commissioners don't know because we haven't been given the opportunity to have an input on this. And the main thing is people are still recovering from Harvey here in this county. And COVID-19, we don't know how this is going to end. What's our economy going to be like? People have lost businesses, jobs. Taxes are a very sensitive subject to a lot of people in this county. It needs to be put to a vote, and that can be done very easily as early as November if the county commissioners want to. Thank you. Come sign our petition. All right.
So that was Andrew Kane, and I think he pretty much expressed kind of what most of us feel about it and why we're here. It's not that people don't want a courthouse. We understand that there needs to be some, that government has its place and it needs to function. It's just about the size of the debt. We're going to let Wendy Lawbach speak now. She spoke last night at a forum that was held next door. And I don't know if it's going to be the same or different, but we're going to turn the floor over to her and let her have her say.
Hi, I'm Wendy Lawbach, the County Commissioner for Precinct 4. That's the north end of the county. I've been in office now for about 1.5 years. So I started to become really involved in county politics, mostly after the storm. So, for the last 3 years or so, I've been paying pretty close attention. And obviously, I've known all along that we have been talking about needing a courthouse because our old courthouse was really thoroughly destroyed in the hurricane. It may not have looked that bad, but it had asbestos damage. The ceiling tiles came down. It's dead. It's gone. It's been demolished. We have to have a new courthouse at some point. And I want a new courthouse. There is just no doubt. I was hoping this courthouse was going to go through. Now, the fact that I have been talking about the courthouse with people for the last several years doesn't mean I didn't get information at the very last minute about what's now going on. There is a big difference between wanting to build a new courthouse and suddenly finding out it's going to cost $20 million in debt and that we have to make a decision on the debt in a few weeks and time's up and there's no time for an election. I really want a courthouse, and I really hear what people are saying when they say we need to have a legacy of a courthouse. But courthouses are important, but they are never going to be as important as the principle that you are entitled to elections on certain important issues. Some things You elect your representatives and you have to trust them, and they do things day by day, and they can't come to you with a referendum every single time. But a really important exception is debt. If we want to go into debt secured by your future tax dollars for a year, for 10 years, for 25 years, as in this case, we always have to give you an election. In some cases, you get it automatically. In other cases, you have to ask for it, but if you ask for it by 5% of the voters, you get it. It is an unalterable principle. If we borrow money, you have a state law right to an election. This is not just people, jumping up and suddenly deciding they want to interfere with their elected representatives or joggle their elbows. It is a state law right. We borrow, you get to vote. This issue, although we have discussed it generally for years, and we keep hearing, you guys are interfering at the last minute in a complicated process that's been put out there for years. Some things have been put out there for years. Yes, the idea of a courthouse has been out there for years. The danger that in the final analysis we would be looking for grants and insurance money, and it might not be quite enough, and that we might have to borrow to fund the gap, that general idea has been out there for years. I've been trying for a long time to find out, where are we? Are we going to find any more money? Are we getting any closer to knowing how much the gap is going to be? Are we going to have to borrow? The first time I finally got a number attached to that gap funding that would have to be borrowed was June of this year. Now, we knew that the next scheduled election was November. In June, we knew enough to at least go out there and start getting your buy-in to this idea that we would have to borrow money. And in fact, I did. When I go to Commissioners Court meetings, I publish them on Facebook. And if you don't read my Facebook page all the time, you should, because that's where you can get information about what we're doing. If I find something out, you find it out too. I publish it. Then in June, all I knew was, it looks like 10 million shortfall. We're probably going to have to borrow 10 million. I took a deep breath and thought, well, we better get out there and start selling a $10 million debt idea to the taxpayers then. But there wasn't a whole lot I could say except I hear this is the number and we're still working on it. Suddenly, and then everybody kept saying, well, what's the courthouse going to look like? How big is it? Let's see some plans. Your commissioner-elect that's going to take over for Precinct 3 in January has been asking consistently in commissioners' meetings for weeks and weeks and weeks, when are we going to see plans? They told her July. We're going to have a meeting in July. You're going to see the plans. Well, we did. We saw plans for the first time on July 13th. They were plans for a 2-story, 45,000 square foot courthouse. We finally got a number attached to that. It was going to be about a little over 17 million for the courthouse. No, that's not right. It was something like 10 to 12 million for the courthouse. Plus, we thought we were going to have to borrow a few million extra because we have to meet a lot of matching fund requirements for all these grants we've been getting for years now. So we were thinking, okay, it looks like 14 million some odd we might have to borrow. I thought, well, that's more than 10, but at least it's kind of in the ballpark. We'll go out and try to sell that. Next thing I know, in the middle of the meeting, people are saying, you know what, that's not enough space. Let's consider making it much bigger. Let's add a third floor, 10,000 square feet. What would that cost? Well, nobody knew because we sprung it that day on the architects, and they, to their credit, they were kind of taken by surprise and said, we better say 10 million more for now, but we'll try to, fine tune that number. The problem was, all of a sudden we're hearing, well, we have to put something in the newspaper this week, 48 hours from now. That was mid-July. Or we won't be able to borrow it by August 31st. And I'm thinking, borrow it by August 31st? Where did that come from? Where did this deadline come from? We've never heard this deadline before. But okay, so fine. Now we're going to publish something in the paper. It was going to be 14 million to be borrowed by August 31st because it had to dovetail somehow with the budget process and the tax rate setting. And then now we're going to add 10 more. So now it's 24.25 million. We're going to put it in the newspaper this week. By the end of August, we're supposed to be borrowing this thing. We're going to authorize it and go to the market and borrow it. And I'm just thinking, where did this come from? Well, one of your neighbors, Andrew, figured out when he read the notice in the newspaper. It says right here in English, we're planning to borrow up to this amount, but if you want an election on it, you've got to have a petition signed by 5% of the registered voters. So he got to get working on a petition. Well, now we're coming up on the election. November's coming up soon. The way the election laws work is if we don't get it on the ballot by August 17th, it can't make it onto the November ballot. Well, yeah, we don't have time to finish the petition process before that date goes by. Not anybody's fault except the people who sprung it on you. in the middle of July. And I mean, I say they sprung it on you. If I didn't know about it, how in the world were you going to know about it? I'm following this pretty closely, and I didn't know. So now we're up very close to the August 17th deadline for getting it on the ballot. I'm working really hard to just put it on the ballot and not wait for the petition to be certified. We know they're going to get there. We know we need to put it on. We know it's right if the voters want an election to have an election. So I'm doing everything I can next week to follow one of the tricky procedures that we have to follow under bond law and state law and so forth to get it on the ballot by the deadline. It's not going to be easy because we haven't left ourselves any time. I really hope we can get it on the ballot in November. I rather hope you'll vote for it, although it's so much bigger than we thought it was going to be and so much more expensive. If it doesn't get on the ballot in November, we can't do this until the next election. It has to be the next regularly state scheduled election. That's May. We can do that. It's not ideal. I'd rather get it on the ballot in November. But all I can tell you is the people who want to see this courthouse built also want you to have an election, which is your right. And we're not trying to slow anything down, but there are some things we just couldn't control. If we don't learn about stuff until the last minute, we can't finish these processes that are required. We're not trying to deprive anybody of a courthouse. All we want is an election. Thank you. Yep, walk off with the mic. You got it?
So thank you, Mrs. Lawbach. That's great. This is really what this is about. It's about keeping calm, trusting the process. The petition is built into the process, so when these things happen, that people can, if 5% of the voters, registered voters, come out, you can sign this petition, and we can put it on the ballot. It's think locally, act locally. There's something we can do, but we need people to come out. Next, we're going to have up Cheryl Matlock, and Cheryl is the owner of the Busted Pot, and she's a lifelong resident of Rockport. She's been involved in Little League. She ran a daycare for a while, so a lot of young kids that that came up, she saw. So we're going to turn it over to Cheryl now.
I said everything I needed to say.
I said everything she needed to say. I'm not going to do it because that'd be harassment.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Matlock. My husband and I have lived in Rockport pretty much all our lives. Okay, and we pretty much grew up here. Our kids grew up here. No one is opposed to having a new courthouse. We all know we need it. It's gonna happen. One thing that we don't need is debt. They don't need a 55,000 square foot courthouse, in my opinion. I think because the voters are going to be the ones that pay for it, and our kids are going to wind up paying for it. And I'd like for my kids to be able to, when they inherit my house, to be able to still afford the taxes on it. And I know there's a lot of people that are the same. And while Rockport, they say, is going to grow, I just can't. I don't know where all those numbers came from, and I'd really like to know where that 50K people in 8 to 10 years is going to come from, because absolutely nobody knows where those numbers are, and I'm a little concerned about that. I'd like to see the plans and specs on it. Like I said, we've lived here all our lives. The only thing that we care about is the people who live here, and obviously I have a business. The downtown project is down the street from my home. It's down the street from my business. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a great location. It's centrally located. My problem is the money, and that they don't want to hear from us. They want to silence our voice by not letting us vote on this. And that is my main concern on this. And every voter out there, I don't care where you are or who you are or what party you're affiliated with, you should be concerned about your tax dollars, and you should be concerned about signing this petition to make sure that you are heard. Because right now, they do not want to hear from us. That's all I have to say.
Okay, so a lot of people are asking how the petition drive's going, and we started last Saturday. And of course, the first day you're going to get your big influx. So I mean, we had hundreds on Saturday, hundreds on Saturday, and hundreds on Sunday. We've gotten quite well over the last week. We're going to do it again tomorrow at this location in downtown on Magnolia. Was it 205 South? 205 South Magnolia at the Busted Pot. Back at the movie theater again, starting at 9 o'clock, probably till dark. Do it again Sunday. We're trying to get as many as we can. We're waiting on one more speaker. If he doesn't show up here in a second, we'll start live again when he gets here. It's going to be Tommy Moore from the NAB District. But does anyone in the audience have any questions, or would you like to come and talk? I mean, it's an open mic night with your neighbors.
I got a question.
Okay, hang on. But you want to come over here, or you want to just...
I don't care.
You go over there and ask me.
Well,
What's your question?
I also have somewhat of a statement, and that is that I don't know how we let 5 people on county commissioners tell the whole city what we're going to do and try to slip it through without a vote. It just irritates the hell out of me, and I think we need to do everything we can to get that position filled. My question is, do you know how they keep saying that if we don't get it done now, we can't do anything for 3 years? That's what the paper says, and I don't understand that, and question.
I'll answer that question unless Wendy wants to answer that question. Wendy, you can fact check me on it, so I'll do my best. So what happens when you have a certificate of obligation? The city has to put it in the paper and on their website, the county, the city did too, for 45 days. And what the 45-day waiting period is, so that citizens have a right to exercise their right during that 45 days, which is to get 5% of the voters to sign a petition. When that happens, during that 45 days, that forces it to a bond election. So to answer your question, when it goes to a bond election, if the voters reject that bond election item, it can't be brought up for 3 more years. So when you hear them talking about we're going to kick the can down the road for 3 years or whatever, 4 years, that would only be if the county commissioners bring something to the voters that the voters don't want. So if I was a county commissioner, I would sit down with my group and say, guys, what are we going to get that we get something? What do the citizens want? Is it 26,000, 30, 45? Is it, and they'd have a lot of opportunity to get that done. So if it gets kicked down the road for 3 years, it's because they presented something to y'all that the citizens voted down. If they present something in November, if they'll put it on the ballot in November, and it gets turned down, it's not going to be on the taxpayers. It's not going to be on this petition drive. This petition drive is only to get it to the voters. And that's it. That was a good question, though. Does anybody else have a question they want to bring? We're waiting on our last speaker.
I've got a question.
Okay. Just introduce yourself and come on up here.
I'm Bill Bean.
It's Bill Bean.
I live in Peninsula Oaks.
There you go. Lives in Peninsula Oaks.
The issue I've got is all I've seen so far is a pretty picture. And my question is, has an architect been involved who drew this up? What's the floor plans look like? Is it going to meet needs? We don't know because we don't know what it looks like. I'm flabbergasted at $30 million and there's no plan. And that's all. That's the issue I've got is we haven't got started yet.
Preliminary plans would be nice.
Yeah, we got to know what we're voting on. I voted no on the petition, and I'll continue to do that until I know what I'm voting for. Right now, we don't know what we're voting for.
Thank you. Well, the situation may not be quite as bad on that topic as you could fear. We did see plans on the 13th, July 13th, and by July 14th, they'd even kind of put together some rough plans, adding the 3rd floor and moving some of the functions around so that people could be closer to other people they needed to be closer to and so forth. There are plans. I am not sure whether you can find them on the county website or not, but I have seen them on Facebook within the last day. I believe they're on the long-term recovery site. Anyway, anybody that knows how to find me on my Facebook page, I can put you some directions to where you can find them. There are plans. Now, they're not final. At this stage, you have to get the money lined up before you can finalize the plans. But they did manage to come up not just with a pretty facade, drawing, but with, detailed plans showing how many square feet and how the offices fit into it and so forth. You got to realize they're not final.
Going to sit where?
Right. Exactly. Although they're going to move. I mean, people are still coming in and saying, oh, you really ought to have the district clerk's office should be closer to the courtroom. It shouldn't be on a different floor. Other people say, well, it's more secure if you put them on different floors. Those are things we'll work out. But there are plans and details. They're not working drawings not yet, and they're not final. But I think that part is okay, because you do have to line up your financing, especially if you got to get voters to vote for it, before you can get that detailed. Because you can't move forward with even architects very far until you have some of your financing lined up.
Hang on, Wendy. Sharon wants to ask you a question.
Based on the stuff that I've looked at, I'm kind of concerned about infrastructure. I noticed that the city, in their $20 million certificate of obligation that they are pushing ahead with, they do have some money set aside for infrastructure around their new building. With the projected growth that they're telling us, what is the plan for infrastructure? Because I don't see any money allotted for that.
Do you mean infrastructure for this building or
Road,
the city in general?
I'm talking about the city in general, because if there's in the county, if they're saying that it's going to grow, well, obviously our infrastructure is going to need to be planned for. And I hate to think, because you're going to have more people on sewer. We're already having issues with that. And my question is, okay, does this lead to they're going to come back down the road and say, oh, we got to pass another bond for infrastructure?
I think it's a really interesting question for this reason. Nobody really knows how fast we're going to grow. But if you think you're pretty sure there's going to be growth and you want to be prudent and plan for the future, and you're trying to build a building that's supposed to last many decades and not just be a temporary structure, you do have to make some guesses about future growth. And unfortunately, if you want to build a big building that will last a long time, you have to build it much bigger today than you're going to need later. And that means borrowing the money now, which is not ideal, but I can see an argument why that's just a hard choice and you have to make it. Now, it is also true that if we do grow, if this growth actually happens, we're going to clearly need, everything in the way of roads and power and sewer and everything. Those things do not have to be built today to plan for future growth. You can actually sort of pay as you go and grow as population growth grows. I wish we could do that with the courthouse. And honestly, the only way to do that with a courthouse is to build one building now and plan for sort of an expanded campus later. That is one of the things that's been under discussion. The answer, as I understand it, is interest rates right now are so low that they do not like the idea of building a smaller building now and planning to expand later if and when we get the growth, because you don't know if many years from now you'll be able to afford the higher interest rates and the higher construction costs. I'm not saying that's a conclusive argument. That is an argument, and I think it's worth considering. And I think the voters should have a lot of information about the alternative, which is take the risk of interest rates climbing and prices climbing, because you've got to remember that the flip side is, if you don't really need it for 30 years, but you build it now, you're borrowing $20 million to build it, so you're paying interest on $20 million for a couple of decades before you actually need it. Now, is that all canceled out by the fact that interest rates may go up? They're hard questions, and I don't see why voters should have to make a decision about them without full information and plenty of time to get ready for an election.
Okay. Thank you, Wendy. There's two questions that came online, and I'm going to get both of those real quick. One of them is saying, remind the tenants, if you don't own property in this town, please don't think that you don't pay these property taxes if they go up. If you're a renter and I'm your landlord and my taxes go up X dollars, your rent will consequently go up X dollars. What the business community's found out, and you read some articles in the paper that, hey, our taxes went up 200, 300, 400%. So we can use the shopping center the plazas in, because the county commissioners have grown, that their rent's going to go up $4,000 a month. That shopping center is public knowledge. So that shopping center was appraised last year for $2.5 million. This year, $8 million. So even if they don't raise your taxes like they say they're going to, when your property value goes up, your taxes go up. My house's value went up 10%. If they say we're not raising your taxes, did my property taxes go up 10%? Yes, they did, because my appraisal went up 10%. So there's lots of new revenue coming in. I think we were at $2.4 billion last year for our appraisals, and it just came in from the office on Monday. We're around $3 billion.
No, that's not even $3 billion. Billion.
Yeah, that's $3 billion. Yeah, 2.4 billion to 3 billion. In my math, that's like a 25. I'm keeping wrong because I'm not the accountant, but that sounds like a 25% increase. They're saying 10. So let's go. Let's go with 10. So the tax bases in this town, because they're raising all your property values, your houses, your shopping centers, on the average, plus new development, has gone up 10%. If they say we're not going to raise your taxes at all, that's the tax rate, like the sales tax rate. That doesn't change, but the volume changed. So there's a 10% right there. Gail had a question about how many signatures are needed. That's always a magic question. How many signatures are needed? Well, we're required to get 5% of the registered or eligible voters. Well, that number is, I think we're 23,000 people, and according to Michelle, it's 17,500 and something registered voters. But how many of those registered voters are no longer alive, moved away? You know, if you ever try to clean a tax roll off, you're going to catch from another group about that's tax suppression. So the number is 17,500. We kind of question that a little bit, and there's some suspended voters. So they're saying in our town of 23,000 people that we have 15,000 voters, and that's the number we're going to have to get 752 signatures on this petition. It's about 25% of what voted the last November election from my lookup. But anyway, so to answer that question, it's 752. Whether the number we're pulling the 5% off of is accurate or not, that's our job. We'll get it done easily enough. Somebody asked about a parking lot. You know, the parking. Right now, the city's here, the county's here, and for both their buildings, for every square foot, you're required so much parking. Well, that whole entire parking lot is on the county's property. And there's been discussion at that meeting, was it enough parking, was it not enough parking? Maybe they said we should buy some land that's available right next to it to get some more parking. They don't know, and some of the commissioners said with our staff alone and some of the department heads, there's not enough parking for just the staff, much less a jury day, much less. So there's a lot of unanswered questions about parking. Remember, this all changed just in a short meeting, so I don't have all the answers. You know why? And I watch the meetings, I go to the meetings, I ask questions. I don't have the answers because I don't think they have the answers. But what they do have is this piece of paper saying they want to put me and my citizens in debt for $24.25 million, and they can't tell me exactly what we're going to do with that yet. Other people said, trust your local leaders. We've elected them. That's why the law has a process that we follow. We have the right to petition our government. Our last speaker's not here, but we've got questions. Oh, Tommy Moore. There you go. All right, thank you, sir. Here you go. You're next, Tommy. Tommy is he's a great boat captain, whooping crane tours, sunset tours, dolphin tours, and he's our navigation rep.
Thanks for everybody being here. Tommy Moore, Aransas County Navigation District, and a citizen of Fulton, Texas, with some property in Rockport. My biggest position is on this, you're going to put, and it's been said before, is you're going to put us in debt at a tough time, and you're not going to do it up front. And there's all kinds of things going on about we can get this money or we can get that money. And we're doing the same thing as the navigation district. We're looking for money, so we know how it is. That's why the bulkhead hadn't been built, because there's possible monies out there that can help us and help us stretch our dollars that we have in the past. Anyway, take it to the people, take it to the vote. It was really easy to get behind all these folks, and let's vote on it, and let's see what we're doing. And then we'll go from there. There's a lot of alternatives, and let's just see what happens. But take it to the vote and let the people say. That's what it's all about.
Thank you, Tommy. I don't know if people remember, but there was the times when we were closing the boat ramps, and Tommy was the one navigation district commissioner who really stood up for the people in the community who don't live in the canals, or people who have a second home and come here and don't have a canal, kind of stood up for those people. I want to take some time and do some sort of like house cleaning stuff to explain, if you're watching, what's going on. This is our petition that we want you to sign. You cannot sign for your wife. You cannot sign for somebody else. We want to make sure that all of these signatures are valid signatures. We don't want to get this kicked back because somebody thought they could sign for their husband or wife, or taking it for a friend to sign. So it's very important that you see this. When you help us out, if you could bring your voter ID card, and that voter ID card, because we record your name on here, there's your number. There are other ways to get it, but this is the easiest way. And also, please do not sign a petition if somebody has it and it does not have one of these attached to it. This is the actual resolution that the County Commissioners Court passed on July 13th. And it's a resolution and it's a resolution for borrowing up to $24,250,000 in debt. And it explains to you what that is going to go for. According to the document, it's going to go for a new courthouse. It's going to go for, I'll just read it, the construction of shoreline drainage improvements and roads to prevent coastal erosion. But that money is actually set aside for, that is matching grant money. That's not actual projects. Is that correct, Mrs. Lawbach? Okay, I want to make sure we get this right, because what I want to do is I want to inform voters. Second, it's for the acquisition of equipment for a county hospital building. We do not have a county hospital building. This is part of a matching grant in a hope to get a county hospital here. And what this document also tells you, it tells us that our current debt load that we're carrying as a county is a little bit over $24 million. And make sure that whoever is taking the petitions has one of these, so that you can read it, so that you know what you're signing. Take it home with you. All we want is for this to go out of the hands of the county commissioner's court and go onto the ballot. And the actual petition that we have is on the top of what you're going to sign, and please take the time to read that. We want you to be able to know what you're signing. We want informed voters, informed citizens. Thank you.
Okay. We're almost done. One last speaker. Our question, clarification.
I just wanted to speak to the resolution. That resolution does not actually, I know we kind of speak of it as a resolution to borrow. It is actually a resolution to put a notice in the paper that gives us freedom to borrow up to a certain amount as early as August 31st. There has been no vote in the Commissioner's Court yet to borrow anything, but we did take action in mid-July to give ourselves that option as early as August 31st. The latest numbers that the long-term recovery team and the county officials have been working on are the ones that we usually refer to here, which is just short of $20 million, $19.9 million. I want to break that down. That is $17.2 million for the courthouse. Total budget would be about $27.2, but we have about $10 million in a combination of insurance and grants. So $17.2 million is for the courthouse. The other $2.7 million that gets you up to $19.9 is, as Jeff said, a combination of matching funds for a variety of grants that we've already received. There's some small amounts in there for a generator, I believe, for the emergency office, and about $800,000 that we are committed to put into a new hospital if we win a grant to buy a new, to build a new hospital. So that's where the numbers add up to 19.9. We have not moved or voted to borrow anything yet. I expect action on that possibly at the end of this month.
All right, thanks for watching. Last call on questions. Okay, we got one more question coming up, so you might want to hang tight, Wendy.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
Just state your name real quick and
I'm George Rikers.
say it again.
I'm George Rikers from South Rockport Neighbors.
Right.
You're alive.
Oh, I'm George Rikers from South Rockport Neighbors. South Rockport Neighbors is a crime watch organization that started in 1995, and the lady that used to have a laundromat here was a very active member right back then. But anyways, we have over 300 members, and I can't say yes or no for them. This is something they have to vote on by themselves. So it should go on the ballot, and I urge you all to sign the petition. And the lady about the infrastructure, that is very correct. Before Hurricane Harvey, I called the city to have the drainage ditch that runs alongside my house cleaned out. They couldn't do it at the time, said they were too busy, hurricane coming in. Well, I knew that, that's why I called them. But anyways, my ditch is cleaned out now. I had it cleaned out at my expense before this last hurricane came in last week. But anyways, they don't have the money, and they don't know exactly what they're doing. And nowadays, they can build a building and maybe 10, 15 years from now put another story on it. Our courthouse that was destroyed in the hurricane was built that way too. They could have put another story on it. It would have solved the leak problem from the roof, but that's either here or there. Of course, the building's gone. So, but we do need a courthouse, but we do need to vote on this. So I urge you to sign the petition. Thank you.
All right, thank you for this representative from South Rockport Neighbors. All right, this is one more time last call. I know everybody's getting tired of hearing us talk about politics. Trust me, I didn't get into this. It's not the funnest topic to have, but we were messing around with Christina yesterday. Something says we got to do this fun. So everybody knows Mattress Max, right? So if you're at home and you want to do a selfie on this, post it on our page. I think it goes something like, sign our petition so you can keep your money. Y'all have a good day, man. Like, comment, and share.
I think we would make sure our money's spent right.
You'll figure out how to. Yeah, I don't know how to end it.